intelligence emerging out of biological organization.
Trainment happens if the brainwaves will pick up the frequency.
My main function is to reduce guilt, to reduce fear.
Fall in hell or so angelic, you'll need a pinch of psychedelic.
Psychedelic Times podcast with Joe Mattia.
Hello, welcome to the Psychedelic Times podcast. My name is Joe Mattia, and I am super excited to share this episode with the world. Our guest today is David Bronner from Dr. Bronner's Soap. He is a personal hero of mine, and I don't say that often. This man is someone I really look up to. Before I get into that, I'd like to acknowledge this episode's sponsors. First, the California Institute of Integral Studies, which is offering a certificate program in psychedelic therapies and research. This is a really incredible program. I'd say there's nothing like it in the world, as far as I know, where an accredited school is training people in psychedelic therapy and research. Soon, they'll be opening applications for its fourth cohort, which begins in March of 2019. The goal of the program is to teach licensed psychotherapists, medical professionals, and ordained clergy to become psychedelic researchers in the U.S. and abroad. So far, 89 professionals hold the certificate, and currently, right now, there are 66 people in the training. More than a dozen top researchers have partnered with the center to teach in the program. A few of them are Dr. Bill Richards from Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Charles Grob of UCLA, Michael and Annie Midhofer from the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, also known as MAPS. So a lot of really strong people have partnered with this program to teach. Graduates will be making major advances in psychedelic research, and eventually they'll be eligible to work as psychedelic clinical researchers under the supervision of medical professionals who will be able to prescribe and administer the medication. If you're interested in this program, they're based out of San Francisco, and I highly recommend just looking over it, even if you're not necessarily eligible to take the course, because it's really groundbreaking, incredible work that they're doing. And like I said, there's just nothing like it in the world. This episode is also brought to you by Dr. Bronner's. They are the top U.S. brand of soaps in the natural marketplace. They make socially and environmentally responsible products of the highest quality and dedicate their profits to help make a better world. How do they do this? Every year, they make contributions to a number of incredible programs and causes, including drug policy reform, sustainable agriculture, wage equality, fair trade, animal advocacy, psychedelic research. The list goes on and on and on. I've actually had the opportunity to visit their headquarters down in Southern California and happen to personally know a few people who work there and can say that they're all very happy. 100% paid medical dental premiums for all their employees and their families, annual bonuses, profit sharing, child daycare, vegan lunches. And it's a real testament to a product. It's like, how do we take care of our people? So, if you're buying their product, it's going to actually take care of all the employees down the line. And I find them as a real example for the world on how a company can ethically earn profits while paying its people really well and making a positive change in the world. I could literally go on forever, and I highly encourage people to do a few searches just to check out and see how they're actually running their business and what some of these practices are. They operate under the B Corp status. If you're not familiar with that, check it out. It's a for-benefit corporation. Specifically, something that's exciting for Psychedelic Times to share is their major contribution to MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. Last year, they made a commitment to give $5 million to psychedelic research for MAPS, $1 million a year for 5 years. And the gift is reserved for the Phase 3 studies of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for PTSD. And this program is basically making MDMA an FDA-approved medicine. If you want to learn more about that, check out MAPS' website. So by purchasing Dr. Bronner's products, you are literally voting with your dollars and contributing to psychedelic research and other meaningful global projects. And this is a great opportunity for me to introduce today's guest, David Bronner, the CEO, or shall I say the Cosmic Engagement Officer of Dr. Bronner's. He's a fifth-generation soap maker. His family began making soap back in 1858, and his grandfather, Emanuel Bronner, actually started the company in the U.S. in 1948. When David took the company over in 1998, it had an annual revenue of $4 million. Last year, in 2017, it's now at over $111 million. Pretty impressive. He's a board member of the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, holds a degree in biology from Harvard University, and he is not afraid to stand up for what he believes in, locking himself in an unmovable cage across the street from the White House, pressing hemp seeds into hemp while discussing the benefits of the plant. He's also sued the DEA and won so the company could legally obtain hemp oil as a soap ingredient. You're going to love this interview. Without further ado, here it is. All right, David, thank you so much for having me here at the mothership of the Dr. Bronner's corporate offices here.
Yeah.
What do you guys refer to it as here? Is this the mothership? What is this?
I like the mothership. That's the new name.
Okay, the mothership. So yeah, this is actually a really exciting opportunity for me to be here with you because my wife and I, we've been together for, we just had our 9-year anniversary. And when we first met, we did this incredible like cleanup of the kitchen and all the food and spices and condiments. We cleared everything out. And then the second wave of that was like under the sink, the bathrooms, and, stuff to wash the clothes with. And it was a big gallon jug of Dr. Bronner's. That was the first time she introduced me to it. And this is just magical to be here in this space with you and see that the people behind this movement are, in fact, who they say they are, that the label reads true.
Right on.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. So thank you. Yeah.
I'm trying to ignore the alarm going off in our parking lot.
I know.
And it's reminding me actually of like when we had actually Bob Jesse and some other kind of heavyweights in the movement over at my house. And we started with a meditation. This is right before the MAPS board meeting we hosted a couple of weeks ago. And seriously, like right as we start, like the leaf blower dudes like hitting, and then like this, it was like ridiculous, but it was awesome just hearing trying to hear through it all, and like wow. But it was pretty deep and sweet, nonetheless.
Cool.
So thank you, Carl. Yes.
That's right. Yeah, it definitely threw me off. Thanks for acknowledging it. Now we can like just let that ride in the background. So you mentioned MAPS actually. So I guess we could chat a little bit about that. That's a big part of I think our connection initially. We met at Burning Man and the support of the Zendo, which is a MAPS project. You're also a board member. How did that come to be? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, well, first I was born, man, it's it
all started.
Yeah. Well, I guess, where do you start with this one? I guess I met Rick, in 2005 on the playa. It was my first burn, and, I was like, whoa, MAPS is here, and had known about MAPS, based on mostly until that point, we were in the cannabis reform space. We had put in, actually, let me just back up. I guess that story just needs to start with kind of, all right, well, I guess, my life was like radically changed and reorientated in Amsterdam after college. I was in college at Harvard. Had some intense psychedelic experiences, including like one of the first that like really kind of, started to set me on a path was a mushroom experience. I was a biology major, and
in Amsterdam.
No, in Harvard. So now I'm backing up. Okay. So now I'm just going to start. So in college, I was at Harvard. I was a biology student or major, mostly smoking a lot of pot with my friends, but actually learning about whatever in the kind of materialist scientific worldview. And, you know, it was just really important, mind-blowing stuff, but also really limited when they would, especially in biology, that human consciousness is just another adaptation for survival. And of course, yes, you know, in a certain limited view of reality, that absolutely is the case, but there's way more to this mystery. And I was starting to already question that. And then my first mushroom experience, I remember just like, you know, what does it mean that, you know, my body is in quantum continuum with my environment, you know, and that energetically there's nothing that separates me in the world, and having that first self-dissolution, and like I'm eating and I'm pooping, and, you know, energy is just flowing through me from the world, and I'm one with the world. And
this was your first experience with psychedelic outside of cannabis?
It might have been my second. I think I
Okay.
might have taken acid. That wasn't like too memorable, but this was the first like real
Meaningful.
like, you know, like, whoa, you know, just like a real self-expanding unity experience, and not like super dramatic, but like, you know, enough to like, you know, wow. But then it was, and, you know, and I had some additional important experiences, but it was in Amsterdam. So I had a Euro pass after graduation, and went to London, and then went to Amsterdam. And I was in Amsterdam in November of 1995, and it was the Cannabis Cup. And I just kind of connected with people who were in the squat scene. So Amsterdam at the time was like, due to the drug war here, basically all these American expats, like growers, like all the top growers were in Amsterdam. And that was going to change in 96 with Prop 215. And that passed California, and, you know, everyone came back. But at the time, it was the, you know, real epicenter of the cannabis movement, and just there at the right time, right place, right time. There was this whole international activist, artistic squat scene in Amsterdam. You can squat buildings if they're vacant, and that the owners, if they can't prove they're doing something with it, within 1 year, you can legally stay there.
1 year?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, and so there's a lot of stories.
Little nuances in there.
Yeah. And there's permanent squats and, you know, temporary squats. And so we were in like one of the longer term squats on Leiserstraat in Kaisergracht. So met a lot of people, including Sam Smith. He was part of our church it was a church in Arkansas that was using cannabis as a sacrament, of all places. A church with, and Reverend, I think Tom Brown was the leader, but they formed a church with cannabis as their sacrament, and made a very, you know, political statement that this is our sacrament. We're protected under religious freedom. And of course the feds came in and busted them and arrested a bunch of them, and they're, you know, 10 years to life. And like 3 of the church members had gotten to Amsterdam, including this one guy, Sam Smith. And he was just a really influential cat. And, you know, in my world at a time that, I remember I was in a gay trans club and negotiating a lot in my life, and took acid and E. And yeah, so just had a lot of experiences of ego death and heart blasting open and white light experiences. And,
what year was this when you were in?
This is 95 in November. You know, like relating to, yeah, like on one level, like just like going into like a complete paranoid universe of like just contemplating like rape and violence, and like, or like on one level, just, you know, just kind of like there's none of this is happening, but just kind of entertaining, you know, like that this does happen, it's happening now elsewhere, and then, oh, it's happening now. And then just like negotiating, like, oh, okay, well, what's the easiest karmically like easy way so that no one who's involved here has to sin any more than they need to? Like, it's just complete surrender. It's just fucking, you know, don't make anybody be worse than they need to be, and just surrender to it. And then like, boom, you know, just ego death, fucking light explodes, heart opens, you know, come through that. And I'm like, you know, okay, well, that's not happening, but good job, you know, you made a real sweet, moral, ethical choice in a totally paranoid universe. But then I'm like, yeah, well, what up, God? Like, you know, there is, you know, violence and rape going down all, you know, right now. And then I'm microscoped to nothing, and just the self of like all of reality of, you know, and it's just like, of which I'm just a little part, and we're all just, you know, nothing. And it's just like this, you know, self can do to the self what the self is. It's just what it is.
Right.
You know, and just had this enormous kind of like Job, you know, the whirlwind kind of deal. But then also saw Jesus over here, and he's got his back to me, and he's like looking into the maelstrom, and he's not like not complaining about it. He's not trying to explain it. You know, he's just like there, and he's just stepping up, and he's just like, yeah, I'm here, you know, here, bro, you know, to help. And, you know, just this compassionate, sweet flow. And I'm just like, yeah, I want to be like that guy. I mean, I just want to serve and, you know, be down. And then at the time, my then girlfriend, now wife, we'd been going through a lot and had a realization that like she'd gone to Asia for 9 months, and she'd come back, and you know, I'd been pretty jealous. She'd had erotic adventures and just been free and just done all this stuff, and you know, and we're in a crisis moment in our relationship, and I just remember just realizing that just seeing like me like just caging her, and that like there's this beautiful force of eros and compassion in the world, and you know, and like just, you know, dude, like better you die or just get out of the fucking way than be in her way. And it's not even, you know, and her is like, you know, it's just, and then like, as I realize this, I mean, I see like myself as like a horde of dark beings, like, you know, and I'm falling away like from this assault on the light, and I'm just falling away. And then the light, and Chris embraces me into the light, you know, and it's just like, you know, just full forgiveness, instantly forgive myself, you know, just perfect, sweet, you know, unity, light, love. And just, you know, realizing that, you know, in a way it was my soul anima, like kind of, or just, you know, the larger eros of like what I was doing to Chris, I was doing on my own soul, I was doing to, you know, life in general. And like, just like, you know, just getting out of this patriarchal, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like built into our psyche growing up, and the way we're taught with relationships is really, like you said, this idea of caging. It's just like that we own each other, men to women and women to men.
Yeah,
that we have this like control over our partners.
Yeah, and just and it's basically we are not free ourselves, and we don't, and we just oppress. We oppress ourselves, and we oppress each other.
This is good information. This is good stuff, because this is something that, you know, my partner and I definitely have come up against. And I think when you're doing a lot of work in the plant medicine and psychedelic world, those things become really, it shines light on those sides of yourself where you are constricting, restricting, holding things. And I like what you said, how it's like that restriction on her or that Kate or whatever it was is actually something on yourself. This is good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was totally my, you know, and it was just her embracing my soul, you know, it was like both liberating both of us.
This was a long time ago. So you guys made it through this.
Oh yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, I'm segueing here a little bit, but I'm curious about that and how you guys maintain.
Well, I mean, you know, we're happily married and have a 20-year-old daughter, and but before I move, so there's two more big ego deaths. And one I forgot, like, so one earlier was.
So this was LSD and MDMA.
MDMA,
right?
Yeah, candy flip in a gay trans club.
Okay.
And so like really kind of bringing it.
Small nuance here, but do you take the LSD first or the MDMA first, or is it?
You know, in this case, it was LSD first.
Okay.
And you know, all these times, like the big psychedelic episodes, I feel like. I mean, there's like spirit world kind of synchronicities lining up as far as your internal set, you know, and just, I was just ready to be initiated, you know, it's just like things had maneuvered into place, and, you know, and the sacraments appeared and as they did, and bam, you know.
Right.
So one of, I mean, and then being kind of homophobic, like earlier, like just kind of moving through like just like, dude, what, you know, this, like as like, you know, dudes are coming up on me and dirty dancing me, and just having like this homophobic reaction of just, you know, and just like dude, what's your thing? And then like just like, well, wait, I mean, am I like internalizing like this? Am I gay? Am I like just, you know, hate, you know, kind of doing a self-hate and outward, and just going deep on that and just realizing I'm not gay, I'm not straight, I'm not man, I'm not woman, and just releasing all these like fucking levels of whatever identity to, I'm soul incarnate here to get down.
Right.
And one of the, and then the final thing was like, once I like, with Chris, like, she embraced me and I'm like, wow, okay, bam, we're fucking, soulmates for life, and bam. But then this guy, Helena, or this woman, cross-dressed guy, Helena, who's Henry, who's this gay guy, like had a nice, we kicked it like a couple days earlier, just had a nice little hang. So he's all beautiful and cross-dressed, and Helena, so it's just this whole like, like coming in like all hot, and I'm like, well, I'm with Chris now, spirit world, I just had this whole thing, and then bam, I'm back into the dark hole. And it was this kind of hot, cold game of the whole night, like of like with the spirit world, like just being in direct kind of dialogue, and whatever like choice, if you made it right, heart opens, light explodes. Wrong choice, you're in the cave, you're in the dark hole or whatever. So that was wrong choice, I'm like, no. And then I'm like, dude, what's your problem? Like, here's someone who's coming to like embrace and get down, and like, why would you refuse that? And just open and be free and let arrows flow. And, and it's not like we didn't hook up or nothing. It was just like psychically, like emotionally, just bam, just all these stupid resistances that get in the way of whatever, sweet, intimate encounter with each other. And so, yeah, anyway, so all this stuff. And I had like, I would say like for 2 years after I have so much more access now, like, or it took me like, I would say like 5 years to fully integrate it. And it was like, full blown spiritual emergency. I mean, all these, the white light, the heart opening chakra, and like, full Kundalini, like releases. And I was like borderline paranoid schizophrenic for like a couple of years, but in a, not in any dysfunctional way. I was able to function. And in fact, I became a mental health counselor in the Boston area, in the McLean area. McLean's a famous mental health hospital. And I was a really good mental health counselor. I'm primarily counseling paranoid schizophrenic population because I basically had, experienced the territory, and luckily it come back down, but it was still negotiating and integrating and journaling and doing all kinds of work on myself as I was counseling these guys that were just, navigating, similar territory. So anyways, I'm kind of skipping around a little bit, but
it's cool.
I was at Amsterdam for a bit, came back, sold all my stuff.
Right. You said there was a few big experiences, then we kind of went back to that first one, but there was like a couple more big ones you said kind of before you came back.
Well, those are that's the big, that kind of more or less sums up like what was the big one that really just kind of, disintegrated my whole identity and worldview. And, and this is in the context of wrapping it back to Sam and like just becoming totally politicized around cannabis, and that the drug war is a religious war on our sacrament. It's a war on the counterculture, and the movement that rejected the war machine, use these sacraments to help think for themselves, and the crisis of the culture that and that, what had been like something I did for fun, and now became like a passion.
Will there always be something that we need to press up against? Like the war on drugs, the war on consciousness, cognitive liberty. It's like, if we were in a utopia, right? Like, what would that look like? What would life be like where we all kind of came together in what I consider to be harmony? I've had experience with numerous psychedelics, even at a young age when it wasn't in my context to call it a medicine. However, it was deeply spiritual. And in whether it's mushrooms, LSD, 5-MeO-DMT, ibogaine, ayahuasca, I get these visions, and I know people in the community do. I have this conversation a lot of where we come together in harmony. That's my way of putting it, that humanity can harmonize. And what I also equally come up against in journeys is, do we always need something to press up against? Like, so what is, if you know where I'm going with that?
Yeah,
like,
no, I think like in a way like that inertia, struggle, is necessary to, fully develop the, most beautiful and awesome things about ourselves. And there's a novelist, Olaf Stapledon. So when I was on my spiritual, after I had these huge experiences and was looking for, and I was wide open and people were coming at me like, oh, the dolphins are running the show, or, hey, we're going to have our 13th chakra activated when the galactic, whatever goes down. I'm like, whoa, okay, maybe, but, and subsequently, not that I'm not totally open to all kinds of awesome, mysterious stuff, but, just kind of got more sober. But I remember this one guy who kind of told me what I didn't want to hear, because I was like, oh, I just got to fucking go to the monastery and, or just do X, Y, Z, and I'll just fucking be in the spot,
right.
Like all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And, and he was like, yeah, you can do the monastery thing, but, people have a real tough time integrating back into the world if you do that. And what we really need are just like adults that are like really in it and fighting in it and, in the struggle and, and I was like, okay, well, but he recommended some of the books that were the most influential is, this guy, Olaf Stapledon, and he's a British novelist and philosopher, and Last and First Man and Star Maker. And Last and First Man is a story like humanity is the protagonist, and in a future history over like the next 5 billion years. And so even like so it like the basic story is that like we every once in a while get out of our barbarism, and like the first world like our world is the first is we don't make it, we don't get too far, but after like another 10,000 years of whatever barbarism back into the jungle, we like come back up, we come back in the second men, they get pretty damn high. They get real high before tragedy strikes again. But the like when the second, and then and I guess we go all the way to the 25th man. There's just all these cycles.
What's the name of the book?
Last and First Men. But what in these more enlightened generations of humanity that even have like planetary, like they get so synced and harmonized that they can be in like perfect like planetary awakening, Gaia awakening, and even converse with other, awakened planetary beings and eventually galactic awakenings leading to cosmic awakening, that in these enlightened kind of more utopian generations of humanity, they have like their lifespan is something like 50,000 years. But the first 2,000 years you go spend on the continent where you got to get all the struggle and all that stuff, and you got to go through it all. You got to experience it all. You got to anyways, the insight on it is that, yeah, if you try, like you always need to have some kind of struggle and some kind of something, I think is the point. Like you can't just be, easy street. Like you're not going to develop any depth or, spiritual depth or something. There's something about struggle and overcoming, and, if it's just all easy, that's not going to maybe be the most awesome. But anyways, who knows? I don't know.
So like your friend said, you got to come be in the world. You could go do the reclusion and meditate and get there, but instead you chose to enter into the world, society. You came back from being a squatter. You kind of
and in full respect to monastic brothers and sisters,
of course,
make that choice, and a lot of them do come back and contribute in mighty huge ways. So
what made you make that choice? And then now here you are. So I think we're starting to maybe get this timeline. Sort of.
So, okay, right. So let's see. So the question was Rick Doblin and MAPS. So yeah. So anyway, so that whole explanation was to say like, okay, so out of Amsterdam, like I came back, sold all my stuff, moved back to grow plants, became vegan and just became very activist and activated in that my kind of life passion was going to be.
This is in your blood, activism. Is there where did the activism, has that always been a part of you to be?
No, not really. I was pretty apolitical. I came up in a Reaganite household, and I mean, my mom and dad are awesome. My dad's like the most moral, ethical man I know, just really all about his family and community, and kind of rejected my granddad's more cosmic trip, which my granddad was all on the one love, cosmic, unite spaceship Earth, super beautiful, but kind of reneged on his immediate family, like being a good father. And so my dad compensated the other way. But anyways, so I mean, I guess my granddad would be like the relevant example, sure. But this was kind of my own path, like, right? That and but when this all went down, I finally understood what my granddad was talking about. Like right. Up until then, I'm like, it was just sailing over my head, Got it. But now all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, duh, we gotta unite the spaceship Earth. We gotta get responsible, and we need to integrate these sacramental allies that can help us elevate and get to where we need to go. So that's, that became a passion, my primary passion project. But, after becoming a mental health counselor, and in really understanding like my granddad and the opportunity that I had within the family business, which in coming back home and selling my stuff, and growing plants, like I was just, I'm on this other trip now, but now coming back full circle, realize, wow, what an opportunity, what an inheritance, and what my granddad had done and made, and that my dad and mom and uncle were custodians of. And so I was able to come into let my dad know that I was ready to come into the soap company, the family soap company. Actually, so Chris and I, our daughter was born on March 7th, 97, the same day that Dr. Bronner died. And so like a real high five in and out. And then shortly thereafter, whoa. Yeah. So then my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer shortly thereafter. But before I was able to communicate, hey, I'm ready to come in, and so luckily I was able to make that decision before having to do it. So it was like a really good path. And then I had a really good year with my dad before he died in 98, June of 98. And actually he died on my Uncle Ralph's birthday, June 12th. So I was able to come in and take the reins and just get the download from my dad. And I guess then in 99, the first kind of, and coming into the company, I was like, I'm going to run this like my granddad, like this is going to be an activist project for him. The label, the message was the most important. The soap was there to sell the label, not vice versa. Right. And it was all about uniting Spaceship Earth and the next Holocaust with nuclear weapons. We're all going down. We need to realize our transcendent unity across religious, ethnic divides. And that was his mission, just 100%. And so, I mean, I have that mission, but, also just in, a general, maybe even more practical activist mission. And that's my dad's influence. Like, where can you practically move the world? We're not going to just get there, one love, and all be, we got to like work hard on right where we can, right? Where's the leverage points? And yeah. So, so putting hemp seed oil into this, like that was the first major activist deal. Is like, so industrial hemp, the most ridiculous part of the drug war, the non-drug agricultural variety of cannabis that's Schedule 1 and should be just grown as any other agricultural crop. So it was just a way of like engaging and hitting on the machine.
As far as I know, the U.S. is like one of the largest importers of hemp in the world.
We have the largest market for hemp fiber and seed products. So it's this ridiculous situation where we can import hemp seed and fiber, but we can't grow. Well, historically we can't grow, but that changed now. As of 2014, we're shifting things rapidly. Right. Obviously the cannabis movement has been hugely successful, and we're, on the brink of ultimate victory. But historically, it was like we put hemp seed oil in the soap. All of a sudden, Bronner's has got hemp call out on all the labels and all these retailers that until then were not carrying hemp products, and just trying to open up space around cannabis. And, medical marijuana was on a similar trajectory and a real hard fight, here in California and here locally in San Diego. And just engaging, like, medical obviously was the first huge break in the drug war in 215. And Prop 215 is when a lot of the growers came back and a lot of the activists came back. So putting hemp seed oil in a soap. And then so when Bush gets elected, Bush's DEA starts, coming down on hemp. And with 9/11, right after in October of 2001, the Department of Justice to go nuts on all the dispensaries, to go after all industrial hemp. So we're all supposedly drug kingpins with Schedule 1 drugs with our hemp seed oil, and we have to dispose of it by February 6th of 2002. And so we're in a protracted legal battle, which we ultimately win on February 6th, 2004. And February 6th is Bob Marley's birthday. And there's a lot of synchronicities in this fight on the, you know, just on that kind of level. But anyway, so just, you know, that was the first big activist thing. And it was the, you know, I mean, at the time, I mean, now hemp is like, I mean, that's not even a big deal. But at the time, it was like, you know.
Yeah, you had a Schedule 1.
Yeah, it was a stressful deal, right? And like, so beating them and knocking the government on their ass was the first major victory. And then we were also supporting ASA, Americans for Safe Access, they're the main medical marijuana group.
Right.
And they were founded by Steph Scherer, who'd been tackled at an IMF protest and was using cannabis medicinally. But also Rick and MAPS had been filed their, they were trying to break the El Soli monopoly. So the University of Mississippi grows the only government approved marijuana. And it's this trashy, crappy,
expensive,
disgusting, expensive, seedy, horrible, moldy. Yeah, it's just terrible medicine.
Right. So
trying to break this monopoly and just have like, you know, much more, you know, efficient quality medicine at a better cost, more available.
Sure.
So MAPS was going up against the machine, and they're trying to. Lyle Cracker was the professor at UMass Amherst or something that wanted to. So MAPS was leading that charge. So we were kind of fighting in the courts and with DEA at the same time. And so I knew all about Rick and his fight. And so anyway, so on the playa in 2005, I'm like, oh, MAPS is here. So I cruise over, catch Rick speak, and introduce myself after. I'm like, hey, Rick, you know, I'm David Bronner, you know, fighting on the hemp front here, but, you know, really LSD is the end game, and, you know, we're all about what you're doing. And so we had just a really good connect. Actually had a, then met later that night when a campmate so I had learned all about Sanctuary at the same time. So Sanctuary was the precursor to Zendo. So Sanctuary was a space at Burning Man where if you're having overwhelming psychedelic experience, rather than take you to the med tent, you go to Sanctuary. So, you know, obviously being in a fluorescent medical tent while you're, you know, having a really bad trip is not the right move at all. So Sanctuary is just where you come and you have sitters and you're able to navigate through the difficult territory to a, you know, positive outcome, and, you know, can do really good work and have a real positive outcome rather than have a very traumatic experience.
Right.
So I heard all about this. Then we have this campmate like that night who is like, we had all taken some LSD, and she took some mushrooms that turned out she was on a course of antibiotics that totally counterindicated, but she's passing out. So, you know, and I'm like, okay, we got to get her to Sanctuary, and, you know, just kind of got her in, and we're tripping pretty hard. And, you know, I meet Rick again, and I got to meet Rick as he's like our friend, like really soothing her, just doing a sweet Rick treatment. So she's calming down, he's puking in a bucket, but, you know, and we're all holding space inside, and just like this like amazing kind of moment, seeing Rick operate again. And then, you know, he's like, yeah, okay, you guys can go, just come by in the morning and she'll be fine. So just got to meet Rick in this great, you know, kind of two times in the same day. And
firsthand experience of what the Sanctuary at the time gets to offer. And,
I mean, what a help. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, and then just, you know, it was just a matter of time. We had, you know, just more deep coordination. We coordinated on medical marijuana in Israel. So we basically helped kickstart things there. Or we were in early helping, I mean, obviously grassroots movement, but we were able to help.
So your dad, you had mentioned your dad talks about the practical side. I mean, and, you know, just doing a little bit of research before this interview, I mean, it's just like there's countless millions of dollars I keep seeing that you and Dr. Bronners have donated toward cannabis activism, MAPS, $5 million toward the MDMA clinical trials. It's $1 million a year for 5 years. So would this kind of stand to like that practical side where you're putting your money?
Yeah, you got to engage on the political. You know, you got to what Rick is a real great example of, is like working inside the system.
Right.
Like, I mean, I'm all about festival culture and all the freedom, and it's super important and exactly equally important to like create spaces that incarnate as closely as possible the global society and culture. But we got to operate inside that global culture machine and change it from the inside. Obi-Wan Kenobi inside the Death Star style. And that's Rick. I mean, he's in there and he's like, I'm going to work the FDA process and make psychedelics into legal medicine, prescribable medicine. It's like, well, okay, that's amazing.
Right.
And he just has this vision on how to do it, and he's just relentless and strategic. And so, but then on the cannabis, like these state ballot measures, like understanding that direct democracy in states that have the ballot measure process, this is how you can bypass gridlock legislators and put the vote to the people. And all the progressive issues are advancing this way, gay marriage, cannabis, minimum wage. We're all like winning at the state ballot, and understanding that mechanism to affect social change. And that's a very effective way. So we've been putting a lot of firepower into that. And we've seen this massive, obviously, cultural progress in terms of gay marriage, cannabis, and minimum wage. Arguably, Trump is like the kind of a counter reaction to the amount of progress we have been making culturally,
right? And
a temporary counter reaction. Right. Just keep rocking through it,
right?
Just understanding like just the political process and how to engage on it, understanding the courts and litigation, and litigating with DEA and winning. I mean, that was like a very intense schooling in kind of how administrative law works and how you can like trip them up on procedural grounds. And
right. So like you're very open. Clearly, we're talking about a lot of experiences you've had with various psychedelics and how they've impacted your life. I live in the Bay Area, so I'm in what I call Psychedelic Valley, Silicon Valley, where there's this really big emergence of psychedelics and plant medicine in that whole community. Which I think has been there, but now people are starting to talk about it a little more. And there's a certain quietness to it, which I understand. These are not these companies are funded in different forms and fashions. That if the CEO was completely out about it, I could see them being at a particular risk, or maybe not being at liberty to be so free about it. However, in close conversations, I have conversations with these guys, and it's like, it is what's driving the change they're making. It is what's impacting the way they're treating their employees and how they're, using it to crack really big, complicated problems, whether it be an algorithm or, through different various social change groups and such. But I still find that a lot of people are very guarded and protected around fully really just being out about it. And first of all, I just want to commend you for it, because it's, a part of why I'm out is this trajectory of meeting people like Rick Doblin and you, and then saying, oh, wait, I've had these experiences. I can be out about this too. But what do you recommend to this upcoming entrepreneur and how to really navigate, being out about it and,
Yeah. Well, that's exactly. I mean, it's a lesson from the gay rights. The LBGT trajectory has been all about come out wherever you are. And just when that was the battle cry. I forget which battle back in the 80s that was just when everyone's coming out. Your teacher, your aunt, all these respected people holding down professions and rocking their lives responsibly as adults. That's crucial to changing the opinions of people. So that I'm a successful father and CEO and coach and rocking life in a lot of different ways, and being open about how psychedelics help me check into my deeper authentic self and do help me connect to sources of life and creativity and ethics and morality that just help keep me centered and rocking on a harder level. I think that's necessary. But at the same time, like even me as CEO of like pretty much one of the, freakiest, funkiest companies around. I mean, we're almost Grateful Dead level of counterculture energy. Like it was a process, we've got my family is generally not, on the super psychedelic tip. and concerned about brand optics and, you know, CEO going out there popping off about stuff. So, I mean, it wasn't like something I speak freely now, but it's been a process to get to here. And I'm really proud of my family, like over the trajectory as things, you know, we did things kind of quietly and behind, you know, like we weren't public about supporting, you know, more spicy stuff like cannabis reform. And, but then over the years, like it's become more and more integrated into the company culture until now I'm like, you know, on the board of MAPS, and we're making a very public gift to MAPS, and I'm very, you know, outspoken about the benefits of psychedelics for all people, you know, used, you know, wisely.
It's just like any family, you know, it's like take steps to kind of get that.
Yeah, it takes steps. So I would say my advice is like, yeah, I mean, you got to, you know, be realistic. I mean, about where everyone's at, and I mean, but pushing, you know, you know, push towards that goal, but, you know, I guess with compassion and care, but also honoring that this is your truth and your truth should shine, you know. And
sure.
So it's just like, yeah, taking the steps as you can take them.
Right.
And then, you know, and as you can integrate more and more of your life, obviously the healthier and less energy it takes to, you know, I don't know, like manage and, you know, compartmentalized self kind of thing.
Right. Right. And so compartmentalized self, I'm curious. I mean, it seems like all one is becoming all one in a lot of ways. And so running a big business like you have here, there's a lot of people relying on you, a lot of employees and the whole supply chain. And how do you balance out the, you know, the one love unity that comes through various psychedelic experiences, and then also, you know, getting in here and like rocking it in business? I mean, you have a lot of responsibility in the business world.
Yeah. I mean, they're, you know, obviously connected in the all one, but yeah, I mean, the all one unity experience is beautiful in what it is. But then we have the, you know, just the life as it is, and all the people and personalities and systems and structures and that we operate in. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, people are, you know, crazy, awesome, difficult. And so you just gotta like run a tight ship, be efficient, you know, and but respectful. I mean, we obviously pay well. Our wages are great, really good benefits, and
you're from what I understand, the CEO's salary is capped at 5 times.
Yeah, so we cap it 5 times 1, just to be clear that all the profits we generate that we don't need for the business are going into the causes we believe in, and that includes obviously integration of psychedelics, but also regenerative organic agriculture, fair trade, income inequality, you know, raising the minimum wage, and other problems and social problems. Oh man, I forgot there was a thought I had on, what was your last, the question before? There was a final one.
Balancing out the two of the CEO and the...
So no, the 5-to-1 CEO coming out of the closet. I don't know.
It'll come back.
I put the intention down.
Okay.
It'll come back.
We got to have it. Yeah. So what is your role in MAPS? What's the board member role? What's that like? What do you do there?
Well, mostly check John Gilmore. No, me and John get on great, and he's awesome. He's so him and Rick and Ashana. So him, Rick, and Ashana really, you know, drove the ship and laid the strategic vision. And John Gilmore is like my hero. So another playa experience was, I remember going to Entheon in 2008 to see John Gilmore on a panel of, you know, ending the drug war. And here's this guy who's like giving away $1 million of his money over 10 years, you know, $10 million bucks. I'm like, who is this guy, dude? I want to be this guy, you know? So, I mean, he's just a hero of mine. And so it was just a real honor. Like, so Ashana died in 2011. And Ashana was a transgendered, high tech entrepreneur, made a lot of money, and left $5 million to MAPS, but also along with Rick and John. I mean, Rick primarily, obviously, but Ashana and John also really helped shape and drive the strategic trajectory of MAPS. So when Ashana died, I guess like a couple years later, I forget exactly, you know, it's not necessarily causally, but Rick invited me to step into my board to be on the board and, just kind of strategically review the mission, provide input. I mean, we've gone from a $5 million company revenues a year to $100 million, and just managing that growth and how do you do it. We're a benefit corp, so MAPS formed a for-profit benefit corp subsidiary to be the pharma company, nonprofit pharma company. But it's not, it's a for-profit wholly owned by the parent nonprofit MAPS. And we just have to do that for tax reasons. Just helping advise and all that, and our experience and attorneys and of doing all this kind of stuff. But then fundraising obviously is a huge thing, like both directly, but then, donor to donor fundraising is the most effective, and we need to raise, 10 million more bucks for phase 3. And that's just phase 3 in the US. So MAPS is on the cusp of, we've got FDA approval now for phase 3. It's incredible. And on August 22nd, we're going to find out if we have breakthrough designation. So if we get breakthrough designation from the FDA, that's huge. It just basically means FDA, it's going to give us a lot more help. And it means we're kind of pretty much assured of approval. And not that we're not confident anyway, but to do that, we need to raise 10 or 12 million more bucks, and most of that in the next 2 years, because we got to 500 subjects need to be administered MDMA, and this complex psychotherapy, not that complex, but it's 9 sessions, 3 with MDMA, and costs a lot. But on the other side of which, MAPS is going to have a 5-year market exclusive on sale of MDMA for treatment-resistant PTSD, and doctors and physicians can then off-label for other conditions like anorexia and everything else that MDMA is good as an adjunct for therapy.
Right.
And MAPS with that sale will then be self-generating psychedelic pharma company, able to now raise funds, tens of millions of dollars to deploy into other research for other psychedelic allies, and start talking about ibogaine for opiate addiction, and some of the, I guess, that's the big one I think that's on the radar. Of course, LSD is the end game, but there's still a lot of baggage there. But I should also talk about Hefter and USONA, that as a board member of MAPS, obviously I talk about MAPS, but as a donor, you got to think also about Hefter and USONA, and they're driving psilocybin through for major depressive disorder, especially end-of-life anxiety.
Right.
And that's just as important to, obviously, we need to move them both forward. So that's another, 12 million bucks gap to fill. So there's a big gap to fill to drive both MDMA and psilocybin through FDA phase 3 trials.
They both need 12 million.
I don't know exact numbers, but it's 10 to 12 million, and one's
but in that
range. Yeah. I mean, that's not the overall budget, but that's the gap
right.
that we need to close. And then there's another, 30 million. Like if we could do everything we want in the next 5 years, there's another 30 where we'd be running, simultaneous studies, phase 2 studies, so smaller studies on, like MDMA for anorexia and other things we know MDMA is good for, but you need to do like some studies, like smaller ones, just so that a physician who does an off-label recommendation can point to a study. And it doesn't have to be the full phase 3, but so we need to be running like phase 2, like on as many different other conditions as we can, so that we're going to maximize the impact once we get FDA approval. So overall, basically, we need to raise 50 million bucks in the next 5 years. So it's this big amount, but there are like forces plugging in and allies stepping up, and we're hoping at the Burn we're going to host a mixer, or MAPS is going to host a mixer along with, we're calling it Psychedelic Super Band, with some other important organizations, and just have people get to know each other. No hard asks or anything, but just this
is what we're doing.
Yeah, this is
what we need.
Your allies that understand the necessity of integrating these medicines and the capacity to help us do it, kind of thing. And just having more events like that, and just, like you say, like all these tech billionaires or entrepreneurs who have all these benefits, like, hey, you don't have to be public, but,
here's how you can plug in and help.
Oh, here. And now I remember, which is once we get approval, like all the, like coming out of the closet, it's gonna everywhere. Like all these people, all these professionals, all these entrepreneurs, all these CEOs are now, we've opened up the cultural space because FDA approval is going to remove the cultural stigma.
Right.
You know, and then unleash government and just traditional institutional funding into other psychedelic medicine and just the space for people to talk about, share, and just, wow, you know, it's just going to be totally different.
Right.
So, but that is a process. So like the fact that I can speak as openly as I can now is in large part because of all the gains we've already made. And, you know, I'm in a position to maybe go first or before others, in, you know, CEOs or whatever. But, you know, I wasn't going to do this in 2010, you know, but with the whole cannabis victories we've been rocking and, you know, completing phase 2 and then now getting phase 3 and just a general shift in conversation. Michael Pollan's cover story in New Yorker, the trip treatment,
right.
2 years ago. Right. You know, so that trend is obviously it's a you know, it's already happening, but with FDA approval, it's just the floodgates open.
So what, if you could briefly talk, or maybe not briefly, but just what are some of your own integration practices? How do you integrate when you come out of experiences? What are you doing to keep yourself grounded?
Journaling, you know, a lot of journaling, meditation.
Yeah. What kind of meditations do you do? I'm just curious.
Just, you know, close my eyes and breathe, you know.
Be still.
Be still. And I mean, especially after a big experience, you know, just kind of bringing back the visions and the, you know, I recently had a real deep LSD one. I never actually put on the blindfold and went deep with a sitter and just, you know, working through some hard, you know, just a real important time of my life. And just had some big experiences, but including like a white serpentine dragon with rainbow flowing hair, like going on a ride. And then just a lot of concern of just making sure our whole community just elevating through some real difficult times to like get into that one love, get the love they need from wherever needed and appropriate, and just just having this amazing experience. And then not culminating, but at a certain point, I'm in the fur of a Rasta lion, or the Rasta lion, like just little specks in the fur, and just Rasta glow of love, and just, you know, the lion heart, the Rasta lion heart. And anyway, so that was super sweet. But there was some important, difficult, nonetheless, things out of that experience. But luckily, even, you know, so I scheduled that, and then coincidentally, another shamanist rad lady offered me a 5-MeO DMT experience like 3 days after that. And I'm like, whoa, man. So I'm going to go on a deep dive with, you know, 200 to 300 mics, and then a 5-MeO DMT 3 days later. That sounds like a lot, but it turned out to be the most beautiful thing. And the DMT actually, in a really sweet way, kind of really answered some of the dilemmas and coming out. I mean, it was just the LSD was amazing, but yeah. And I'm not going to go super on all the detail, but, you know, just had a DMT shot me into an experience of our pup. When we got our puppy, she's 9 now, but when we got her, she was a rescue out of Tijuana, and we got her, and she was she had kennel cough, and so the, you know, lady said, oh yeah, from the shelter, oh yeah, she'll be fine. But then she's like crawling around, and like, well, she's not fine. So we take her to the vet. And that's like, yeah, she's got pneumonia and she might not make it through the night, but if she makes it, she's good. So the next morning we get a call, you know, hey, she's fine, come get her. So I go down and I'm like, whoa, is this, you know, puppy gonna even remember me? You know, we just met and then she's almost dying. And so Chris gets her in on her shoulder, and Carly totally remembers me as giving me the sweetest little kisses, like just, so in my DM, I'm just shot right to her, like just, you know, giving me these sweet kisses. And yeah, there's just something really deep about just this wounded animal whose love blessed us and, you know, lived for us. And yeah, and it answered like a lot of stuff on a lot of levels, and including how to appropriately express energies on more than one level. But yeah, so it turns out, and yeah, you know what? And that's actually happened a couple times where LSD will help integrate a prior LSD experience, you know, like kind of shortly after, like
Sure.
it'll just, oh, this is like the perfect, you know, just kind of whatever was kind of open gets resolved. And so that'll happen. But oftentimes it's just, you know, I guess, you know, journaling and thinking about it. Oh, and I use cannabis every day. So just in my kind of mind flow of whatever, you know, just a lot of that, you know, that process of listening to music and thinking about stuff and getting in tune with stuff.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, bro. Love you.
Yeah, right on, Joe.
Good
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right. Well, I guess if anybody's interested in all the stuff we covered here today, we'll have all kinds of links and whatnot. And you can make your contributions. I did an interview with Rick a while ago and said, how can people help? And he said, number one, come out of the closet. Number two, you can donate. And I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that. How can people engage in this movement?
Yeah, exactly. Host dinners. There's like these, like, you know, MAPS has like, I think if you go to the site, they have like host your psychedelic dinner and just like invite people over and just kind of talk about your experiences. And yeah, and yeah, donate, volunteer for Zendo. You can be a sitter at different festivals.
Right on.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Cool. Right on.
Peace.
Bam.
Thank you so much for listening. Once again, I'd like to express my gratitude for our sponsors, CIIS, the California Institute of Integral Studies, and the Center for Psychedelic Therapies and Research. If you're interested in furthering your education and entering the field of psychedelic therapy, check them out. Also, Dr. Bronner's organic, fair trade, high quality products that you're also contributing to some of the world's greatest activism every time you make a purchase. Check them out for more. And thank you to David for this incredible interview. I really love being with you and learning from you. Our next guest is Alan Bediner. He's the editor of Zigzag Zen, Buddhism and Psychedelics. He's also a student of the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. We have an incredible conversation, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Peace, love, and psychedelics.